FM, online, gobrave.org, a tune-in radio station, part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network.
Broadcasting live from Hobart Hall in Wayne, New Jersey.
This is
The Innovative.
I think they're really unique.
The Fearless.
They have awesome variety.
The Kick-Ass.
I love Brave New Radio.
The Sensational.
I've never heard anything like it.
This is the one and only Brave New Radio.
The views and opinions expressed on this show are solely those of the host and guest, and are not necessarily supported by WPSC 88.7 FM, station management, or the station owner, William Patterson University. Anyone wanting to offer differing opinions may do so by calling the show at 973-720-2738. Abusive callers will be rejected. Now here's your program on WP 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio.
Well, good morning, good morning. Good morning to you. And yes, believe it or not, it is Saturday morning once again. I think I start off the show each week just about with the same proclamation. It seems like I'm here every day, even though it's only one day a week. Seems like I was just sitting behind this microphone and another week has gone by. If you're not sure, or if you're not sure who you're listening to, you are listening to Marc Medley, host of The Reading Circle with Marc Medley. We come to you live each Saturday morning beginning at 6 o'clock a.m. So everything is in place. All of the equipment is working. My guest is on the line, so we're going to do what we normally do on a Saturday morning. I'm going to open up with the weather. I'm going to read from our two books, introduce our guests, share some information with you, and then our interview will be underway. So without further ado, we're going to get right in there. We're going to jump right in there and give you the weather right now in the northern New Jersey area. 59.4 degrees, and it feels like 59.4 degrees. We're working our way up to a high of 87 and a low of 59. Sunny today, clear skies tonight, and then on tomorrow, Sunday, generally sunny as well. Clear on tomorrow night, 89 as the high tomorrow, 62 as the low. And then on Monday, sunshine and clouds mixed, 88 as a high, 66 as a low. And on Tuesday, scattered showers and thunderstorms, high of 84, low of 63. Scattered showers and thunderstorms during the evening as well, 60% chance of rain on Tuesday and Tuesday night. And then on Wednesday, partly cloudy early, followed by increasing clouds with showers developing later in the day. High of 84, low of 60, cloudy with occasional showers on Wednesday night. Well, that is the weather brought to you right here from the WP 80.7 FM Weather Center. If you have been listening to the show for any length of time, then you know I start the show off reading from two books. As I just shared the weather with you, I also share two readings with you and then introduce my guests, and off we go. So for today, June the 25th, Out of the Power of Being Thankful, 365 Devotions for Discovering the Strength of Gratitude by Joyce Meyer. For today, June 25th, The Value of Self-Control. Live discreet, temperate, self-controlled, upright, devout, spiritually whole lives in this present world. Titus 2:12. As believers in Jesus Christ, God has given us a new nature, but at the same time, we also have to deal with the old nature. When we allow the old nature to rule, we follow feelings when in reality we should operate in self-control. Self-control is a fruit of our new nature, and thankfully, it is something that can be developed. Much like we build muscles by using them, We can develop self-control by using it. Freedom in Christ is a gift to be thankful for, and exercising self-control is a form of freedom, not a type of bondage. You don't have to do what you feel like doing. You're free to do what you know is wise. Discipline and self-control will help you be what you say you want to be, but never could be without the help of God's guidance and grace. Prayer of thanks. Father, I'm so thankful that I don't have to be ruled by emotions or impulses. Thank you that with your help, I can live a self-control, overcoming life in Christ. That's from the book, The Power of Being Thankful, 365 Devotions for Discovering the Strength of Gratitude by Joyce Meyer. I'm going to talk a little bit about that self-control in a couple of minutes, because that was a great, matter of fact, I'll talk about it now while I'm changing books. I tell the kids all the time that I work with, there was one grade we had on our report card that they really don't have on the report card nowadays, and it was called just what I was reading about. It was called self-control. And my parents were very clear that if you don't get not one other A on that report card, you better bring home an A in self-control, because that was the one thing you could control, was yourself. So I made sure I always brought home the A's and B's in self-control, but that passage is so true. Until Today by Joyvina Evans for June 25th. She says, I am now willing to forgive myself for not being willing to acknowledge my own anger at myself. When people treat you badly, harshly, or inappropriately, and you accept it, there is an important question you must ask yourself. Why am I still so angry with myself that I would subject myself to this kind of treatment? Many people live with a shroud of hidden internal anger. They are angry at themselves for things they have or have not done in the past. Intellectually, they can convince themselves that they are no longer angry, yet deep down inside they cannot, will not forgive themselves or forget what happened. At the same time, they are no longer willing to beat up on themselves. They find someone else to do the job. They allow themselves to be treated badly by others because they believe they deserve it. Often unexpressed anger shows up as ill treatment by others. Unexpressed anger is like a red neon sign etched on the soul which reads, beat me, kick me, treat me bad because I've been bad. Silently, we broadcast this energy into the world, attracting those who are willing to comply with our unspoken, often unconscious wish. Because we are not aware of what we are broadcasting, we make excuses for ourselves and for those who are abusive. In all cases, accepting verbal, emotional, or physical abuse is a cry for self-healing and self-forgiveness. This cannot happen until you are willing to recognize the abuse you accept as a symptom of anger you are directing toward yourselves. Until today, you may have been unable or unwilling to recognize that how you allow yourself to be treated is a reflection of how you believe you should be treated. Just for today, examine the people and situations in your life in which you feel abused. Ask yourself, why am I still so angry with myself that I would subject myself to this kind of treatment? Today, I'm devoted to forgiving myself for all the things I may have told myself are unforgivable. That's from the book Until Today by Joyvina Evans. All right, well, I'll tell you what. Going to introduce my guest, and then following our routines and rituals, we'll share some information with you, and then we'll come back and start interviewing her. She is none other than the fearless founder and CEO of the Confidence Academy. And she's more than that, but we're going to talk about that. She holds a PhD and Master's in Public Health, Master's in Administration, and a Bachelors of Business Administration. She has worked in cardiovascular research, clinical research, and academic research. She is currently a college professor and writes curriculum and teaches in undergraduate and graduate public health, community health, and healthcare administration programs for universities in the United States and London. Dr. Joy is the author of From Chaos to Confidence, How to Triumph After Traumatic Experiences and Secrets of a Confident Teen, a 14-day guide to becoming a confident young woman of God. In her spare time, she enjoys traveling, spending time with family and friends, and watching movies. She's an active member of Triumph Church. Oh, all right, Ski Wee. And Alpha Kappa, Alpha Sorority Incorporated. All right, my Greek sister, because I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
Well, welcome to the Reading Circle.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the invitation.
You are more than welcome. I'm going to go ahead and share some information with the listening audience, and then when we come back, we will get started.
The cow says,
I love you.
To a child, it's just something else to play with. Lock it up, because 1.7 million children in the U.S. are living with unlocked and loaded guns. Get involved at ceasefireusa.org.
Think carrying 10 or 20 pounds of extra weight isn't much? We went to a park, handed 10 and 20-pound sandbags to people aged 45 to 60, and asked if we could follow them around.
10 pounds makes a big difference. Oh, I definitely felt it in my knees.
A few extra pounds each year can cause joint pain and lead to serious chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease. Wouldn't you like to drop that weight and stop picking up more? Visit hhs.gov/1 pound at a time to find out how. Obesity happens 1 pound at a time. So does preventing it. Brought to you by HHS and NIH.
All right, welcome back to the Reading Circle. Listening audience, you know what to do. Get on all your social media sites, and I mean all of them, and let someone know that Dr. Joyvina Evans is on the line with me. She calls herself Dr. Joy for short, and she has graciously risen to join us this morning in the 6 o'clock hour, and I am glad that she did. I tell you what, Dr. Joy, we're going to go ahead and get started with, I guess, what I consider my first question, even though I don't have a written question list, but generally I kind of get started with to help the audience so we can walk our way up to chaos, or from chaos to confidence. Where did the writing begin for you? Was this something that you did as a child? Because I notice your degrees are in business administration and masters in administration and public health and so forth and so on. So where, and because now you're an author, where did that writing begin? Was that something you always loved to do, or did that come later?
Thank you again for having me. So I would say this, is that I've always been able to write. With the majority of my master's classes, we had to do a lot of writing. It was a lot more writing, research papers, PowerPoint presentations, etc. And so with the PhD, there was the long, dreaded dissertation, which I wouldn't take that back for anything. But in terms of me being, so I've always been a writer as it pertains to that, but I've never had a goal of becoming an author. Never. That was never, ever, ever my goal. So in terms of these particular books, what actually happened was I went through a really tumultuous season. And following that season, there were feelings of, or I should say during that season, there were feelings of depression, lack of self-worth, my self-esteem diminished. And when I came out, I knew that I went through it for a reason. So, for instance, just to give you a little bit of background, I was engaged to be married. Everything was done. We were in a wedding magazine. We were in newspapers, limo books, honeymoon books, save the dates went out. Everything was done, and then we called off the wedding. My godfather was killed in a motorcycle accident, and then my aunt literally, this may sound gory, but literally it was just like she just dropped dead. We have no idea what happened. And all of these things happened back to back to back, literally within a matter of 6 to 8 weeks. Following that, there was an attempt to assassinate my character at work. And so I just got to a place of, what's going on? What is the issue? What's going on? So I had to come out of that depression. I had to deal with depression. I dealt with grief. I dealt with all of these different negative emotions, some resentment, some bitterness, anger, if I can be honest, anger, sadness, everything. And so when I came out, like I said, I knew that I didn't go through that in vain. I knew that there was a reason that I went through that. And I'm a very private person.
Right.
And so for me, I feel like the Lord was telling me, you went through it. And I've heard T.D. Jakes say this, your misery will be your ministry. You went through it so that you could help others come out of it. Because prior to all of that, my life was great. I never experienced like a death in the family. You know, everything was great. I had not experienced any type of trauma. And so now I feel like I am a lot more relatable, if that makes sense, to the different women and teens that I actually help. So essentially, that's where the first book came from. It's a book of from chaos to confidence, going from that chaotic season to being a confident woman of God, and how I got through that season, the different people that were important, the different things that were important, the different things I had to do, and then how God turned all of that chaos into my purpose. And it turned into a business, turned into multiple books, turned into some coaching. So that's where it essentially came from.
Wow. And you know what's interesting in terms of like various seasons? They do come and go. And it seems like when they come like that, especially whenever you've been having a really good season for an extended period of time, when the stormy season comes, man, does it seem to hit. And it seems like it goes like you just described, one thing after another. And you do begin to wonder what is going on here. It's almost like the 7 plagues. Like, what is going on? One thing after another. I can remember back in the 80s, my mother went through a storm like that in terms of she lost like her mother in 83, and then she lost my dad in 85, and she became ill with diabetes. And I mean, it was just one thing after another. And then you get a good stretch, and then you hit another rough patch again. And I can relate to exactly what you're saying, because I was the same way in terms of everything was clicking the way it was supposed to be clicking, and then went through a divorce and had to retool from that, and you know, so I can relate. And that's one thing I don't wish on anybody is to have to go through that. And I've had other guests on the show that have had some horrific experiences as well. But the interesting thing that I find with folks who go through things like this, because you can go one of two ways. You can get depressed, because getting depressed and getting angry and all those while you're going through, those are natural. The trick is, do you get up from it? Do you get up from the ditch, or do you stay in the ditch? And what I'm hearing from you is, not only did you get out of the ditch, you got back on the road and started running.
Right, absolutely. And, you know, and one of the things that I would say is that I felt, because I did not grow up in the church, but at this point I did have a nice foundation as it pertains to my belief in the Lord and what I knew that God could do for me. And so for me, one of the things that I stood on was the book of Job, and how Job went through all these different things. But at the end of the day, God restored and gave him double for his trouble. And that's what I would stand on is, nope, God is not a respecter of person. God did it for Job. God promised double for my trouble. So I'm coming out of this. And it was hard. It was
no
very
question.
hard. There were days where I was laid prostrate on the floor crying. And then there were days I went through a season where I call it emotionally paralyzed, because I couldn't cry. I couldn't feel. I felt numb. And so, you know, it's a wide range of emotions and feelings that you go through. But like you said, it's a matter of getting up and running forward.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, for me, you would bring up Job, because one of my favorite verses in Job is not one that people would think. One of my favorite parts of Job is when they describe God and Satan talking about him. Mm-hmm. And I always wonder, is God and Satan, think about in terms of God and Satan having a conversation about any of us. because they were having a conversation because, you know, Satan had been scouring the earth, and he's like, you know, I can't find nobody. And then he said, well, you know what? I do have somebody. I'm going to let you try. And, you know, Satan comes back and says, well, of course, you know, he's going to do whatever you want to do because you give him everything you want. That's pretty much, I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said. You give him everything you want. Of course he's going to do that. And he said, all right, go ahead and do it. You can do everything except. And he does. He unleashes Satan on him, and Satan has a field day. But again, it's back to the response. But that verse always, that verse cracks me up, first off, because people don't put God and Satan together. I mean, but now they're up there conversating, up there chilling, having a conversation. Think in terms of if that were the case of happening with us, and it very well could be, that God says, I have some down there that, you know what, I know regardless of, they still are going to be true. And sometimes you wonder when you're going through these things, did God and Satan have a conversation about me there, up there, or down there, or wherever? But you're right, in terms of you go through these things, and like all these horrific events that are going around the world right now, a lot of times some of your most passionate activists are folks that things have happened to. Like I guarantee you, this whole thing in Orlando, matter of fact, it's already started happening, but your most passionate activists are going to be people in the gay, lesbian, so forth and so forth community, because that's where the attack took place. So a lot of times when we go through things, that brings about a passion or activism or this need to help somebody else that may or may not have been there prior to. And then again, like you said, it was one of those deals where if God brought you to it, he brought you through it, and now you got to bless somebody else.
I agree.
So in terms of now, okay, I see the master's, you were working in, or you still work, I guess, in the cardiovascular research, or did you put that to the side to do the confidence areas?
No. So I actually resigned from research as it pertained to working at a university in research. And so I started teaching full-time as a college professor. And so I shared this at a conference that I spoke at, and it was for entrepreneurs, how a lot of people did not understand that decision. And that's one of the areas that we have to be confident in, is being confident and standing firm on what God tells us to do. And a lot of times people won't understand it, but it's not for them to understand. When God tells Joy to do something, God is telling Joy and everyone around Joy. No one around me may understand it, but I have to be confident and obedient in what God told me to do. So I was working for a larger institution here in Michigan, University of Michigan. They're one of the top research institutions. I would say like in the Midwest, and I just got to a point where I wasn't happy anymore doing that. So my biggest satisfaction being at U of M was working with the students and the research assistants. So I had always served as an adjunct faculty at different institutions. So that's where I realized that I wanted to be. So I resigned from U of M, and I started working full-time for the online division for a university that's in Orange Beach, Alabama. And so a lot of people didn't understand that. Like, why would you leave University of Michigan and go to this quote-unquote no-name institution compared to U of M and start teaching there? Well, I didn't understand it at the time, but I had to have that flexibility, because as long as I have my laptop, because it is online, as long as I have my laptop, wherever I travel to, I can get paid. I can do work. You know, I don't have to physically be in an office. And so because of that, I've been able to write the 2 books. Because of that, I was able to start Confidence Academy and start doing a lot of things with that because of the flexibility that I have, and I'm not necessarily tied to a desk for 8, 9, 10 hours a day.
All right, listening audience, I got to share some more information with you, but if you've just joined us, I hope you've been with us since 6. My guest is Dr. Joyvina Evans, also known as Dr. Joy. So we're going to share some more information. Would you get on all your social media sites and let someone know that Dr. Joy is on the air? And this is a message you don't want to miss, only because at some point, I don't care who you are, as long as you are living, you're going to hit a rough patch. And it's not so much the rough patches that are going to be the issue. What really is the issue is how do you respond to those rough patches? So I'm going to share some information with you. While I'm doing that, get on your computer or your telephone or your mobile device and text somebody or tweet somebody, whatever you need to do to let them know that Dr. Joy is on the air with me on gobrave.org.
I started going cold turkey. Well, at least when I'm in the car.
I know I shouldn't do it, but it's so hard to stop. That's why I hide it from myself, so I won't be tempted.
I used to do it all the time. I stopped by locking it in my glove compartment.
My friend used to do it way too much. Now I turn it off when we're in the car.
My solution is simple. I just don't do it.
There are lots of ways to stop yourself and others from texting and driving. How will you stop? Tell us at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Thanks, Julie. And coming up next, is there rain in your weekend forecast? We'll find...
Hey.
Hi.
It's been a while. Great place and nice neighborhood. You must have a strong community association board.
Thanks. I guess so, but I don't pay any attention to that stuff.
Seriously? How do you know for sure the board and community manager are making the right decisions to protect your investment?
I don't, but what am I supposed to do?
You can get involved and connect with CAI.
CA what?
CAI, Community Associations Institute, they're a nonprofit group that has helped us build a great community. They have free resources for your association board, professional training for community managers, and helpful information for homeowners.
Thanks. I'll definitely do that.
Is the time and investment you have made in your home and community protected? Be a smart homeowner and visit CAI at responsiblecommunities.com.
You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley on Brave New Radio.
Yes, indeed, you are. You're listening to The Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley. My guest this morning is Dr. Joyvina Evans. And we're talking about From Chaos to Confidence, How to Triumph After Traumatic Experiences. And we'll probably touch a little bit on her book, Secrets of a Confident Teen. But if you've been listening to us since 6 o'clock, since we started the interview, we're kind of working our way up to how the book came about. And Dr. Joy was expressing to us how she had gone through some catastrophic events. And as a result of those catastrophic events came her current work. We also talked a little bit about how she left probably one of the most prestigious, probably was the high level type jobs. And she was talking about how, you know, when God tells you to do something, it may seem crazy to others, but you know what you were told. And where I'm going with that is, Joyvina, my pastor has this saying that sometimes God has to do the ridiculous to get the miraculous. And so in your case, that sounds like exactly what God was up to, that he was doing what many people would think, that's ridiculous, not knowing the miracles that were going to come out of that. So in terms of now, first off, when you were now you've decided to kind of like, all right, you know what, I'm going back at this. That is now my enemy. That all of that went with me, all those experiences are now my enemy. I want to do something now to advocate, to help others. When you decided to go back and now be the advocate or the activist for whatever in terms of trying to help people build back their confidence, was it tough for you putting in writing, or in your book did you describe your experiences? Or because a lot of times my guests say writing is cathartic. It gives them a chance to air it out, clean it out, get it down on paper. Was that your experience?
Yes, that was absolutely my experience. I can tell you that one of the difficult chapters, the first chapter that I attempted to write was not chapter 1. The first chapter that I attempted to write had to do with my godfather being killed. And so I had to relive that situation. And I also had to stop writing. I had to stop. So I started typing up everything, and then I had to stop because it started evoking some negative emotions. But what I realized is, again, I had to go ahead and deal with that because it wasn't, even though all of these events happened about 5 years ago, I didn't realize until the beginning of 2015 that I had never dealt with his death. I had never grieved his death because I was, for my god sister and god brother, I was trying to be the strong person. So I never dealt with it. And so because everything happened in Houston, he also was buried in Houston. And so at one point I did visit Houston in April of 2015. And I just started feeling a certain way, like I didn't want to go to Houston. I started feeling sad. I didn't know what was going on with me. And it wasn't until I was on the airplane flying from Michigan to Texas that I realized, you never grieve. So I ended up going to the cemetery. And I have never been to a cemetery before prior to this, ever. And so I went to the cemetery, and I remember it was raining. It was dreary. And I just let it out. I literally just being there again, I went ahead and I dealt with it. And that was the best thing that I could have done, was dealt with it. And I've heard that before, as, deal with it before it deals with you.
Absolutely.
And so I'm glad that, I went ahead and I dealt with it. But as a whole, everything, it was very cathartic for me. The one thing I can say is that I was very cautious in the chapter where I talked about my engagement and calling that off. I was very cautious about, and made it about me, not about my ex, because I never want to badmouth or badger or smear someone's name. So I made it about me and the things that I could have done better and how I just wanted, especially a lot of females growing up, we play house. We're ready to get married.
Right.
That's the one thing that we talk about all the time. We dream about is our wedding. And so I was very honest and transparent in that chapter where I said I wanted the wedding and the children. I didn't necessarily want the marriage to him.
There is a difference.
Exactly.
There is a difference. And again, I mean, hindsight is 20/20. But you never know because it's all, let's put it this way, in terms of, because having gone through a divorce and everything that goes with that, it's better to make the decision at the point that you made it in than to get into it and then have to go through all of the procedures and transactions and everything to get back out of it. So while, again, it may look crazy to those on the outside for whatever the reasons were, it's easier to do it at that point. And it may look foolish or it may look silly or how could you or this and that. But if you go further down the road and then you have to try to get out of it legally, it's a whole different ball game. So again, but you're dealing with real world experiences in terms of things that people go through. Did you ever have anyone come up to you after reading your book and say, "Oh my God, I thought I was the only one"?
Yes, I have. And what I can say is that I've had a lot of women on social media, primarily Instagram, that have sent me direct messages and have said that, they got the book and, I can't believe this. I was going through some of the things, and to see that you got through it, because a lot of times, it's almost like I'm never going to get out of this. Oh, I'm never going to get out of this. And I can admit there was one time where I felt like I was never suicidal. I was not suicidal, but I remember thinking, God, this pain is so unbearable. Just if the only way for me to get rid of this pain or for this pain to go away is for you to just go ahead and call me to glory, just call me to glory. And I remember thinking that, just go ahead and just take me now.
Right.
Because I was truly feeling like I am never going to get out of this place. But then that was when, it was just a mindset shift, because for me, even the Bible says faith comes by hearing the word of God. And I got to a point where I had to start beginning to saturate myself with the word. And as I saturated myself with the word and listened to different sermons and motivational speeches and started getting into my word, that was when I started getting more hope and my faith was being built. And all these things were being built up. And that was when I realized, okay, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. This is going to, come out, work out good. And like you said, in terms of, the divorce and hindsight is 20/20, the same thing, there were a lot of people who did not understand exactly what you said. They did not understand it because my ex was a very good man. He was a very good man. And outwardly, it's like, oh, these two are great together. We looked great on paper. But again, he was a great guy, but he was still not my husband. And just because someone is a good person does not mean that they're your husband
Correct.
or they're your wife.
Correct.
And so that was what I had to get to that place as well. And I had to be comfortable and confident in terms of this is the best decision for us, for me.
Absolutely. And, again, if someone reading, if you wrote the same way of which you're telling the story in terms of being that transparent, and someone sees that, you are better to tell the story than someone who's never gone through that. And for example, it would be very hard for me to try to counsel someone who's addicted to drugs because I've never been addicted to drugs. So they could easily say, yeah, Mark, that's easy for you to say because you haven't been addicted to this. On the same token, someone who has been addicted and they've overcome it and they've been clean for X number of years and they're helping them through the struggle, their testimony and advice is a lot more helpful because they've actually had the experience. And a book like yours, especially how you just described everything, is more powerful than someone who hasn't gone through. And again, that could be why, we never know, but that could be why God took you through things, is to be able to help somebody else. Because I've shared the story on the air before. Whenever I was first going through the separation and divorce, I was assigned to a school. Like in the city I live in is truly an urban area, but on the outskirts there's some suburban-like areas. The whole city is urban, but there are suburban-like areas. I got assigned to a school on the fringes. And I had more kids coming to me at that time whose parents were going through separation or divorce. And it began to dawn on me. I was like, well, maybe I'm going through this to be able to help somebody, because a lot of those kids and a lot of those parents, because the parents would call me and they would share their stories with me, and I'd be able to commiserate with them and say, well, I understand because I'm going through the same thing myself. And that gave us a stronger bond and a stronger connection. I mean, I saw kids that would do things. I was telling somebody this a couple days ago. Kids would do things just so their parents would have to be called into the school, because that was their way of trying to get mom and dad back together again. And so, wading through all of that, I had a better appreciation for what the kids were going through as well as what the parents were going through because of what I was going through. I say all that to say, when you put your experiences on paper and in book format, and you do your workshops and your seminars, or they come to the school or the academy, they're coming there not dealing with someone who think they know what their situation is. They're coming there with someone who knows what their situation is. Have you found that to work your advantage? I would think it does, because you've had the experience. Like you said, you're very, in other words, no, you shouldn't feel like you want to commit suicide. Well, you just said, I didn't necessarily think suicidal, but the thought did come to my mind, God, if you need to, go ahead and take me to glory. I would think those kind of stories give somebody even that much more encouragement.
I agree. I agree because, as indicated, there have been a lot of people, even in terms of career decisions, there have been a lot of people who have been able to relate, whether it was the career piece, whether it was the relationship piece, whether it's, grieving a loved one. And I've been able to be more empathetic towards them as well. But then also they're like, oh, because sometimes when people, not all the times, but when people hear a title, they put you in on a certain pedestal, so to speak. And it's like, no, I'm human just like everybody else. I hurt just like everybody else. I cry just like everybody else. I have issues just like everyone else. And so I feel like that, again, makes me a lot more relatable, and where they're like, okay, she got out of it. Look at where she's at now. Then I know I can come out of it as well.
Absolutely. And that's really what it's all about, because one of the tricks of the enemy, as you know, is to make one feel like, gotcha, you're the only one on the entire planet that's suffering whatever through, whether it's relationship, career, or what have you. That is one of the tricks. And once folks, that's why you have support groups. That's why you have the AAs. That's why you have all the different anonymous groups, is to get people together to support each other. The trick of the enemy is to make you get out there alone by yourself, to make you feel that way. So now once, folks, read a story such as yours, and like you said, I'm human, just like anybody else. Or they go to your site and they see your picture, because this is the other thing. People will go to your website, the one I'm on right now, theconfidenceacademy.com, put up your bio, see your picture, and say one of two things. Either I can never be like her. I look at that picture and say, oh, I'll never get there. Or they'll look at that picture and have no clue of what you've gone through. It's one of those things like they say in church, I'm glad I don't look like what I've been through. It's one of them type deals when they go to your website and pull up your picture. You'd never know you went through all that looking at that shot.
Absolutely. And, and I actually had 2 women say that to me after it was a summit that I spoke at, and I was I did the opening workshop, and it was simply on the confident woman. And so I went through 3 different tips. And so one of the things that I shared during one of the tips had to be run your own race. That was one of the tips that I shared. You have to run your own race and stop looking at people saying because Mark is at that level, I'm supposed to be at that level right now. And so, but when I was sharing that part, I went through the different things that had happened to me. So at the end of it all, 2 women got up and they said pretty much the exact same thing as you said. You don't look like what you've been through because I found throughout that period, and let me rephrase that. At the end of that period, I found something that was so critical that everyone needs. 2 things. I found joy and I found peace. Because what I realized is that I was looking for happiness with my ex. I was looking for a human to make me happy. I was looking for him to do what only God can do, and that was really to bring me joy. And so that's what I found was true joy as well as peace, and understanding that you may not have everything that you want, but you have everything that you need.
Absolutely. If you've just joined us, listening audience, and I truly hope you've been listening since 6 o'clock, because Dr. Joy is sharing a story that may very well turn your thinking around, regardless if it's a relationship or your finances or either your career or what have you. A lot of the guests that I bring to the program do just that, and it's my hope that you are inspired and motivated, and maybe if you might have been a little short on hope, maybe we will increase that when you listen to the stories, as we were just saying, of, you know what, if Dr. Joy can get through it, if Mark can get through it, if this one can get through it, I can get through it. And a lot of times that's just the little oomph that you need, but you never know. Because I know I was talking to teachers at my school yesterday, and I said, look, you all, like David in the Bible, sometimes we just have to encourage ourselves. And that's just all to it. Sometimes if you're waiting for somebody else to pat you on the back, it may not come. But you might have to go in there and look at all the accomplishments and things that you've done and say, you know what, we're not that bad after all. Well, the same thing kind of applies in terms of your situation may be horrendous, but each day you're working through that. Some of these things we just have to go through. We're not going to get over them. We're not going to get around them. We're not going to get under them. You just got to go through it. And then when you have role models like Joyvina that you can go, or resources that you can look at to say, okay, how many other people, what did somebody else do that was in this same situation as me? I may not do exactly what they did, but they got through it. So if they can get through it, I can get through it. I hope that you're using these words and the stories that come through to reframe your thinking. If you think you can't do it, that it will turn you around and say, you know what? Yes, I can. I'm going to share some more information with you. Let somebody know that Dr. Joy is on the air with me. And we will resume momentarily.
My name is Diamonds. I am a radio DJ in North Jersey. I broadcast on the frequency of 88.7 FM. I will be on the air every Saturday from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. when the sun is setting in the sky. If you are out there, if anyone is out there, I can provide music, I can provide entertainment. If there's anybody out there, anybody, please.
Club Melting Pot. Every Saturday from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Only on WP 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio.
Want to expand your horizons? Want to broaden your mind? Well, listen to the only show of its kind. Listen to The Reading Circle.
We bring you what's going on in the world of reading, in the world of books. Sometimes the book may be from 20, 30 years ago, because the thing about books, they are timeless, particularly if there's a good message. And then there are times when we do books that are hot off the press, that were just released.
Listen to The Reading Circle every Saturday morning from 6 a.m.
The Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley.
Only on WP 88.7 FM.
The Reading Circle on WP 88.7 FM.
Yes, you are listening to The Reading Circle here on WP 88.7 FM and GoBrave.org. Our tagline is Brave New Radio. We will take you some places that some of the other stations cannot go, even if they wanted to. We can go there, and we do. That's why we're Brave New Radio. My guest this morning is Dr. Joyvina Evans, and we're talking about her book, From Chaos to Confidence. So, Dr. Joy, first off, let me before I ask this question, is the book just for women or is it for anybody?
I would say that the book honestly is for anybody. I would say the only chapter that is probably sort of geared only towards women is probably the first chapter, in which I talk about the engagement, that piece, coming from a woman's standpoint in terms of, we just want children. Or something, not we just want children, but, we want children really fast. We're thinking about planning the wedding, getting everyone involved. I would say that's the only chapter that's 100% geared towards women. Everything else is literally for anyone. But I have noticed that the majority of the people who have bought the book, they absolutely have been women.
And the reason I asked, because the question I was getting ready to ask is, I was going to say, all right, a woman comes to you in a seminar, but I'll rephrase it and say, if someone comes to you and say, okay, you've written this book titled From Chaos to Confidence, How to Triumph After Traumatic Experiences. And they come up to you and say, okay, well, how do I do that? And I don't want you to give all the book away, because folks in the audience, we want you to buy the book. So, I don't want you to give the whole thing away. But, all right, somebody comes, how do I go from chaos to confidence?
For me, number one, I had to get to the point, and I liken it to the woman with the issue of blood in the Bible. And so I had to get to a place of whatever I have to do to be made whole, And that entailed, again, deepening my relationship with Christ, but it also entailed me being honest about the depression and the grief that I was going through. Because, see, here's the thing, is that even though my ex did not die, I still had to grieve the relationship.
Oh, yes.
So I had to grieve that relationship, and I had to grieve my aunt dying. And the reason why I didn't say my godfather is because, remember, I didn't grieve. I wasn't going through that grieving process at the time because, like I said, I pretty much just became numb at that point. And so to give a little bit more information about my godfather is that my biological father is living. And he's in North Carolina, but my godfather was the one that was going to give me away at my wedding. Okay. So we're talking someone that I was very close to.
Right.
Very, very close to. The one who drove me to college on the first day of college and moved me, and and I can go on and on. So we're talking someone that I was very close to. And so I got to the point of like this woman, where it was whatever I have to do to be made whole, including getting professional help. And a lot of times, a lot of people don't want to deal with that piece of it, is that Correct. Some people equate psychologists, psychiatrists, therapy, whatever you want to say, anything with mental health, they equate it to crazy, and that's not the case. You are not crazy because you seek mental counseling. You're actually wise for seeking mental counseling and mental health. So that was the other piece that I had to do to get through that depression and the grief. Was I started going to a therapist, but then I also literally started thirsting after God even more. And then another thing that I did was I had to watch the words that came out of my mouth. The Bible says death and life are in the power of the tongue. And so I had to watch what I said, because there were times where I would say, oh, you're so stupid. Oh, you should have just, kept your mouth shut and should have just dealt with, some of those issues. And then, you would already, be married now. You would have your child. You would have, maybe things weren't that bad. in the relationship and, just different things like that. You're never going to find anyone else. You're never going to get married. So I had to start switching those words around and speaking positive words of life. And then another thing was, again, because as I mentioned earlier on, I'm very private. So I wasn't telling anyone anything in any way, shape, or form. But what happened was I got to the place of understanding that even the Bible talks about wise counsel.
Right.
So when I found who those people were, then they helped me through it as well. I realized that I could not do it on my own. I truly needed a support system to help me get through that season.
And it's interesting, and I always say things are interesting, but whenever I hear something, and you're talking about like with therapy or whatever, and what I'm getting out of that, folks, if you're listening, is don't be ashamed to use resources, whether it be counselors, whether it be pastors, ministers, your church group. For me, a lot of time what works really well for me in terms of a resource is reading books. I would see a book like yours. See, that for me, I haven't had the opportunity, I've never taken the opportunity to actually talk with a therapist, but my therapy is reading books such as yours. I like to see how people went through things or other experience or advice from authors. But my point is, do something. Don't just sit there in denial and don't do anything. Like you just heard Dr. Joy say, you got to get to the point where there's this whole notion in the Bible of being made whole. And like she was just describing, the woman with the issue of blood, she wanted to be made whole. There's another story in there where Jesus actually asked a man, do you want to be made whole? And he gives this crazy answer. He never does just say, yes, I want to be made whole. He gives this excuse. Well, I've been sitting here by the pool. Nobody won't put me in. It really comes down to, do you want to be made whole? Or if you want to put it another way, how bad do you want it? And then at that point, you got to take some steps to get there, whether it's a therapist, whether it's books, whether it's a pastor, whether it's something. Use your resources because you don't know it all. I mean, there are folks out there that honestly think nobody needs to tell me anything in terms of how I need to improve. And therefore, they sit there stuck. And so I'm glad to hear that you're saying it, because the other thing that comes to mind when you're talking about the psychiatrists and the psychologists, in the African American community, and I can understand our history, but there is some serious stigmas going on there in terms of in the African American community why we may or may not use therapy. So even with that, those myths need to be dispelled. That if you need to see a therapist, go get a therapist. If you need to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist, go out there and find a reputable one that actually does a very good job or that you can relate to. Because I can't impress upon this enough. Like I said, for me, I pass books along. If I've read a good book on whatever the topic is that could help, I pass them along and say, you know what, I would read this too. And I've seen people, they look at me like, I ain't reading that. Or they just sit there, don't touch it. Or okay, you don't want to read books. Okay, go to the therapist. Okay, you don't want to go to the therapist, talk to your pastor. Okay, you don't want to, but you got to do something. So, all right, so that's one of the ways to move out of chaos into confidence. What else? Are there any other things?
So I would say one of the other things that for me I did, in addition to using those resources, was literally getting in my mind that, and this is going back to the woman with the issue of blood, is making that decision. Because sometimes it's literally a decision that we have to make. I want, like you said about the man, do you want to be made whole? And I had to get to the place, yes, I want to be made whole. I had to make the decision that I'm not going to stay here anymore. Right. And I think that some of us, and especially with the social media world, and now I'm just talking about relationships, but some of us, it's almost like we like pain. If you know that you are not over this man or woman, why do you keep going to their social media page? Why do you keep looking at these pictures of you two when you were happy and in love and together? And I know some people are like, well, because I like the memories and they're there for a reason. But here's the thing: is that I did have a slideshow that was going to get played at my wedding reception. Right. And I had it, and I remember I was going to throw it away, and one of the pastors, one of my spiritual fathers, she told me, don't throw it away. Do not throw it away. Put it aside, put it, lock it up, whatever. And when you get to a place of healing, look at it. And so I'm like, what? So anyway, but I ended up doing it. But I did end up looking at it one day, and it didn't affect me. And that was when I was like, wow, I could see the growth.
Right.
That I had entailed, but I did not look at it until I was ready, until I was healed, until I was able to deal with it. So there are certain things that I think we do, and I think we just have to make that decision. I'm going to move forward. I'm not going to dwell on the past. The past happened, and I just have to keep being focused on moving forward, not turning around. Even when we think about, was it Lot's wife that turns around, turns into storm?
That's right.
Yeah, sometimes don't turn around. Don't look in the past. You have to keep looking forward. Keep looking forward. Keep moving forward.
All right. So now, listening audience, I'm recapping. So far, we've had, if you need some help, which we all do one way or the other, use your resources, get some help. Secondly, make a decision. So don't sit there stuck and don't keep on going over the, second thoughts. And like we said earlier, hindsight is 20/20 and going back. And, there's a title of another book about something about the windshield in the rearview mirror. I forget the name of it. But you cannot move forward, as Dr. Joy just said, looking in the rearview mirror. Using the driving metaphor or the driving analogy, you got to keep looking in your windshield ahead. You got to look in your rearview mirror to kind of check to make sure nothing's coming. If you need to change lanes and all, turn and all that. But in terms of if you're trying to drive and you're looking dead in your rearview mirror, you're going to crash. And the same thing happens in life. So we have use your resources, whichever way they may be, whether it's books, therapists, spiritual. Okay, make a decision. What else you have?
And then the one that I also mentioned was just being careful with what we say, because how death and life are in the power of the tongue. So we have to choose to speak positive words and stop saying negative things, because that goes across the board. So there are some people, in terms of if someone is overweight, they may say, oh, I'm so fat, oh, I'm so, whatever the case may be, oh, I'm so ugly. We have to stop using those negative words and instead use positive words. And sometimes I think, it's something that was said when I was little. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
I know that's right.
Things about yourself. If you don't have anything nice to say about yourself or about your situation, then sometimes we just need to close our mouth and keep it closed until we're ready to speak life.
No, that's true, because listening audience, you've heard me say this before, and you've heard some other guests say it, and Dr. Joy is confirming it and affirming it yet once again. Some of the deadliest talk is self-talk, because you will do exactly what she just said. Oh, I'm so stupid. Oh, I can't believe I did that. Oh, I'm fat. Oh, I'm ugly. Oh, I'm not sexy. Oh, I'm this. Oh, I'm that. Rather than flipping it around. And we're not talking about, because don't confuse being cocky. Don't confuse being arrogant with positive self-talk. There's a difference. There's a difference between going around as if you have a chip on your shoulder, or going around thinking you all that in a bag of chips, and just having self-confidence. Because if you go around with the attitude that I just described, you're going to wind up turning people off. You're not going to have anybody really in your corner, no support, nothing. Because people are going to say, well, you think you all that, then you don't do it yourself. But whenever you have the self-confidence that we were just talking about in terms of positive talk, that's different. And then there's this thing called law of attraction. There's different names for it, but for the most part, you kind of use the analogy of a magnet. Kind of like what you draw to you is what you're constantly thinking. So if you're constantly thinking negatively, guess what? You're drawing negativity to you. So if you're thinking fat, guess what you're drawing to you? Fat. If you're thinking stupid, guess what you're drawing to you? Stupid. So back to what she was saying in terms of the positive self-talk. Now, that's not to say you're ever going to not say anything that's negative. We're not saying that, because every now and again, you just have to call things real as they are. Like, that's the reality. Because I know a lot of times I'll say something, and my wife says, why are you speaking? No, that's the reality. But at the same time, I'm not expecting that. I'm just stating things the way they are. At the same time, knowing that at some point it's going to change. But it's not going to change for the better unless you speak that change. And that's what she's talking about there. So we have three things now. All right. And things, three is a good number to remember things in. All right. Support. the speech, and the decision, or support, decision, speech, whichever order you want to put them in. But those are the things we're trying to help folks now move from chaos, because there's a lot of chaos out there, to confidence. And Dr. Joy, I've had folks on the show before, and we talked about this whole issue of self-esteem. And you'd be blown away, and you wouldn't, but a lot of the average people would be blown away, again, going back to looking at people and associating that with self-esteem, because some of the most physically gorgeous people on the planet have very low self-esteems.
Absolutely.
So for those of you, I mean, self-esteem, self-confidence, all of that is critical. In order for you to make the decision, you got to have some courage and confidence. That's one thing. So everything is connected. You got to have them all. So, tell me a little bit about, matter of fact, it's the 7 o'clock hour. I tell you, it goes very quickly. Let me change over into the 7 o'clock hour. Then I want to hear a little bit about the Confidence Academy. And so, listening audience, let me go ahead and share the weather and all that stuff with you and do everything I need to do. And then when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the Confidence Academy. I'll give Dr. Joy an opportunity to promote a little bit. And then we will switch over into the good news in song, which is the gospel music.
WPSC. Wayne, New Jersey. On the radio, 88.7 FM. Online, gobrave.org. A tune-in radio station. Part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network.
Broadcasting live from Hobart Hall in Wayne, New Jersey. This is The Innovative.
I think they're really unique.
The Fearless. They have awesome variety. The Kick-Ass. I love Brave New Radio. The Sensational.
I've never heard anything like it.
This is the one and only Brave New Radio.
Straight from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center, here's your local forecast.
Right now, 61.6 degrees, 87 as a high, 59 as a low, plenty of sunshine today and a clear sky tonight. Tomorrow, Sunday, generally sunny, high. We're going to go up to a high of 90 and a low of 62. That's right, folks, summer is here. Clear skies on tomorrow night, and then on Monday, intervals of clouds and sunshine, high of 87, low of 66. On Tuesday, variable clouds with scattered thunderstorms. Those variable clouds actually going to start on Monday night, but we're going to have variable clouds with a high of 84, and it's going to remain kind of cloudy and scattered thunderstorms throughout Tuesday night. Then on Wednesday, partly cloudy early, followed by increasing clouds with showers developing later in the day, but we are going to have a high of 84, low of 62, overcast on Wednesday night. Well, that is the weather brought to you right here from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. It is the 7 o'clock hour. We've actually moved from the Reading Circle hour into the M&M hour, but that's okay. As we've been doing over the last few weeks with the Reading Circle, we have been extending our time, which is all right because I have all 3 hours anyway. Then as soon as I'm done with Dr. Joy in terms of our interview, then I will put on the gospel music. So Dr. Joy, right before I shared the information, we did what we call top of the hour. I said we were going to shift and talk a little bit about the Confidence Academy. Tell us a little bit about that, because it looked like it says you were founded in September of 2015.
Yes. So essentially what happened with Confidence Academy is that I knew that God was calling me to do something, but I did not know what, as it pertained to helping other people. So I actually went to, she is a vision coach, and so she helps you in terms of the vision that God has put in you, helps pull that out of you. So even though I knew that God was calling me to do something, I knew that he wanted me to give back and help other women and teen girls, I didn't know exactly what it was. So I ended up going to, her name is Latoya Early. I went to her, and so when we started talking and mapping out all these different things that had went on in my life, what we found to be the core of it was confidence. So because I am a college instructor, that's where the academy came from. Okay, Confidence Academy. And so with that, what comes with that is the 2 books fall under Confidence Academy. So, and what's interesting in terms of everything that has happened is that it's all been tied to something. The first place that I gave, the first speech that I gave was in Houston, Texas, which is where my godfather was killed.
Right.
Confidence Academy officially became a business and an LLC and incorporated on the day that my aunt died.
Wow.
Of 2015. And so everything had some form of symbolism, and that's how I knew. I was like, okay, God, okay, I see what you're doing. So at any rate, up under Confidence Academy, I have Confidence Boot Camp, which is all virtual. You can be anywhere in the world, and we actually meet once a month. I develop curriculum, and there's a workbook. There are assignments. It's 4 weeks, and we meet every week for 4 weeks. And so there's the discussion, there's a lecture, there's, again, question and answers. There are assignments, there are videos you have to watch, there are readings. And so that's with the Confidence Boot Camp. And so we talk about areas as it pertains to jealousy, envy, how that ties to low self-esteem, and as well as relationships, having confidence with your career, with yourself, with family members, etc. Then there's Confident Conversations, which is the book club. As of now, it's local. It's only in Michigan, but I do plan on making it a virtual book club so that we all can get together wherever we are and we read different books. Last month, the book that we read was Shonda Rhimes' Year of Yes, and this month we're reading The Esther Anointing. And that just started. Another thing that I plan on doing is Confident Teens Rock, and that will physically be a camp where I will have young girls, teenagers, 13 through 18, will come to this physical campground, and we'll do team-building exercises as well as discussions on self-esteem, again, jealousy, envy, peer pressure, parents, in terms of a lot of time teenagers think parents just don't understand, like Will Smith said with his popular song back in the day, but parents and getting along with parents. But then also I want to touch on diet and exercise, because especially with teens, and this is something that I went through as a teenager, I actually suffered from an eating disorder. I was anorexic. And that's why I want to touch on diet and exercise, only because so that teens will know the proper way.
Absolutely.
If there is a situation in terms of wanting to, lose weight, or if they are overweight, obese, whatever, doing it the proper way in terms of exercising, walking, Zumba, dancing, riding a bike, etc., and then just cutting back on, instead of getting that burger from McDonald's, getting a salad from McDonald's, instead of drinking that High C orange or that Coke or Diet Coke, drinking water, squeeze lemon in it, squeeze lime in it for the flavoring, different things like that. So those are some of the things right now that we're doing with Confidence Academy, but it does keep expanding.
All right. Well, we are down to the point now where I give you the opportunity to promote all your work. We were just talking about Confidence Academy, but you have the opportunity in terms of your books and everything, book signings, websites, how they can get in contact with you. You have the opportunity to do that, and you can mention anything with the exception of a dollar amount. And before we even go there, I'm trying to make sure, because I deal with so many different people, but if I recall correctly, you were the one who recommended Dr. Eddie Connor to me, correct?
Correct.
Yes, that's what I thought. Okay, and boy, when he came on, we had a ball as well that morning we came on. So I thank you so much for recommending him. We had a very good appearance some months ago. About three months ago now, I believe it was. So I thank you for that. If you see him, tell him I said hello. And
Will do.
And then, again, you have the opportunity now. Anything you'd like to promote or anybody you'd like to shout out, this is your opportunity to do so.
Absolutely. So I will say, in terms of reaching me, you can reach me. My website is confidenceacademy.info. Again, that is confidenceacademy.info. You can reach me on social media. My Instagram page and Periscope is I am Dr. Joy. That's I am Dr. Joy. My Twitter is I am _Dr. Joy. And then Facebook is Joyvina Evans, as well as LinkedIn. Facebook and LinkedIn are Joyvina Evans. Again, I am very grateful for the opportunity. I appreciate the opportunity and you thinking of me. You can get the book. Any of the listeners can get the book on my website, again, confidenceacademy.info, or you can also go to Amazon to get either book, From Chaos to Confidence or Secrets of a Confident Teen. And again, I thank everyone for listening in, and I thank you, Mark, for the invitation.
Well, I thank you again for joining me. And as I said in the beginning of the interview, to my knowledge, all of the mechanical equipment is working and the show is recorded. So then I take it home and edit it and put it in my YouTube format in terms of archiving. But I also send you the links, and you feel free to do whatever you'd like with those links. Put them on websites, send them out, email, however you want to do it. But once I send them to you, they're yours. You can do what you like with them. And we were talking symbolism earlier, but as I look at your site, I see a lot of alpha symbolism there, because the dress is pink, correct?
Yes.
All right, so I see the AKA pink there. Then when I go to the top under About Us, I see all this alpha gold. I see the pyramid. I see the gold chess piece, the gold paper clips. So I guess as we say, ski wee and ski fi. But in any event, thank you so much for joining us. I know you were in transit or in travel, and the connection came through fine. Even though you were on the cell phone, everything worked well.
That's awesome.
So, all right, we will be in touch. Have a wonderfully blessed day.
Thanks. Thank you again. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care. Well, that brings us to the end of another reading circle with Marc Medley. My guest this morning was Dr. Joyvina Evans, or for short, Dr. Joy. And you just heard her story. You can find out more by getting the book From Chaos to Confidence: How to Triumph After Traumatic Experiences. I encourage you to do that. Like I said, for me, books are my resources. Whenever I'm having an issue or struggling with an issue, I don't go to another human being. I go to, well, I do, but I go to them through their books. They're authors, so they're human beings. They've written their experiences in books. And for me, that's how I connect. I will, whatever the issue is. So I'm one of those, and I said it before. If a doctor diagnoses something with me, immediately I start doing research. Bam. If something is going down, something is going wrong in other areas, whether it's finance, whether it's career, whether it's relationship, whatever, immediately start researching. What books can I read on this? What has happened to other people? That's my style. Preferably, I try to help other people develop that same style. It's not necessarily there, so it's like, okay, I'm not reading all of that or what have you. But my point is, find something. Don't just sit there and be so arrogant and so cocky to think that you don't need some type of guidance. Because the truth of the matter is, we do. And most people who don't grow, who don't move, are the ones that just sit there either thinking they know it all, or they're sitting there in a pity party, or they're sitting there with all kinds of other whatever thing. But they're doing everything except, as she said, trying to be made whole. Some people are happy being half. Some people are happy being a quarter. Some people are happy being a 10th, opposed to being 100%. And there are opportunities for you to become 100 are there. The question is, will you take it? Will you read that book? Will you go to that therapist? Will you talk to that pastor? Will you do whatever it is that you need to do to be made whole? It's kind of like the story we were just talking about. Jesus asked the man at the pool, wilt thou be made whole? Do you want to be made whole? Oh, well, I've been sitting here for X number of years and everybody else jumps in the pool before me. Nobody will help me into the pool. And that's not the question he asked. He asked, do you want to be made whole? That was a yes or no. Yes, I want to be made whole. So it's that same type deal. Had a wonderful time talking with Dr. Joy this morning. We're getting ready to put on the good news.
Bye.